Good evening, wrestling community, and welcome to another edition of Wrestle Talk Show. I'm your host, Joshua Zimmerman, here to bring you the week in professional wrestling, news, bits, rumors, anything and everything pro wrestling. We cover it, or at least touch on it. We don't leave you out in the dark. Anything and everything. Highlights today include WWE stock in even more trouble, and new promotion to enter the internet pay-per-view scene. All this and more on this episode. So let's get right into it. Hello and welcome to Wrestle Talk Show. Let's get right into your ratings. Monday Night Raw for January 24th, 2011 scored a 3.3. Friday Night SmackDown for January 21st scored a 2.12, which translates to a 2.1. TNA Impact for January 20th scored a 1.15. So, it's safe to say that Raw is still spitting out its consistent between 3.1 and 3.5s. SmackDown kind of doing better than what we thought. We were ragging on it because it couldn't seem to score over a 1.8 at one point, and their goal was a 2.0, and now they're actually getting their goal and then some. So some improvement there, but it kind of neutralizes itself as you'll hear. In your news for professional wrestling, William Regal has been selected as one of the first trainers in WWE Tough Enough, solidifying the fact that I will be watching it because William Regal is a wrestler to learn from, and it'll be interesting to see what he brings to the table, considering since a wellness violation, he hasn't really been pushed as I imagine he'd want to be. The new Nexus group, the second Nexus group, a Nexus for SmackDown, is known as Core, C-O-R-R-E. And they had to give it a name because Vince likes to own everything, and giving it the name Core means that McMahon can trademark this and has trademarked this. Yesterday, WWE stock falls yet again from our last report. Just showing you a bit of a comparison from the last report to this report. Yesterday, there were mass volumes of shares traded. Financial community questioning the leadership, questioning management, and the timeline of events, how the bottom seems to be falling out of pro wrestling. And that'll be our segment coming up. But it closed yesterday at $11.76 a share yesterday, down nearly 5% compared to Wednesday's report of $12.30 a share. TNA has gotten its United Kingdom audience back with a new television partner. Challenge TV will air Impact, Explosion, and TNA pay-per-views for the UK wrestling audience. Dixie Carter, in a recent UK interview to promote the European tour, did an interview on sexism. That full interview can be found at pwtorch.com along with a video. But in the interview, she said she's always viewed sexism as you have to be, as a woman in this business, you have to be that much better than the person next to you, and the majority of the time the person next to you is a male. I found this kind of funny because she emphasized on being that much better, and TNA is not that much better. It's actually that much worse. So, wonder what she meant there. As we mentioned, a Midwest-based Dreamwave Wrestling promotion announced yesterday that it will be holding an internet pay-per-view on February 5th, 2011 in LaSalle, and its main eventers are to feature Kevin Nash and Davey Richards. let's just hope Nash doesn't break something on his way to the ring. My comments on this, I believe they were emphasized a couple of videos ago. I've more or less touched on everything, you know, with TNA, Dixie Carter, all the mistakes she's made that I don't even think are, a majority of them are her fault. She just listens to the wrong people. I think she's very smart. She's just got the wrong people feeding her information. But can Kevin Nash pull for this promotion is the question. I think that TNA letting him go was a sign that he's a legend, or may go out as a legend, even though his recent work is what you make fun of him for now. He might put asses in seats, but I think Davey Richards will be your bigger draw, because I think the Kevin Nash audience is gone. The audience, we discussed this in that video. If you look a couple months back, I believe it's Dixie Carter, Get a Clue. People that were into Kevin Nash are no longer into wrestling, or no longer alive. Like, the audience he had was the audience for that generation. And it proved to be true in recent. He doesn't draw like he used to. I'm sure TNA would still have him on the card if Kevin Nash still drew like Kevin Nash used to draw. Kevin Nash is old, beaten up, and they moved on. Is it good that he's getting a work? I'm sure it's not coming cheap for this promoter. So this will be a payday for him, but will anything happen? I'll follow it and we'll report on it. Sid Vicious over the weekend was arrested for having 18 grams of marijuana after being pulled over for not wearing his seatbelt. Officers found 18 grams of marijuana sitting on his armrest. Now, all I have to say to this is, really, if you're going to do it, hide it. You might as well, like they said on Smart Wrestling Fan last night, you might as well have stuck it on your rearview mirror and just gotten it out of the way. How can you be that blatant about it? And by the way, Smart Wrestling Fan did not know 18 grams is the equivalent to half an ounce. So it was a substantial amount of weed. He was booked for not wearing a license, not wearing a seatbelt, not wearing a seatbelt, and marijuana possession, and released on a $1,000 bond, which is rather low. We'll see what develops on that. Like anything in wrestling, I don't think you're going to hear much of it. He'll pay a fine and it'll be done. Brock Lesnar formally comments on The Undertaker, stating in an interview also available at pwtorch.com that I've worked with the man, I've worked with him, but I really don't care for The Undertaker. He goes on to state that he never pursued involvement in WrestleMania 27, kind of saying that it came out of left field, more or less, is the interpretation I got. Ric Flair has bailed out of TNA's recently, as of last week they launched it. Ric Flair's bailed out of the European tour. Sources say it's a dispute over money. And Connecticut has hired a new labor commissioner. What does this mean for World Wrestling Entertainment and the way it labels, classifies, and treats its independent contractors / superstars / professional wrestlers? And on to our segment. And I'll just put it this way. Is the bottom falling out on the giants of professional wrestling? It was bound to happen sooner or later, and I don't know why everyone is kind of shocked about this. For the last couple months, we've been going back and forth about how WWE can use its writers and be writing better material, and some things have not added up Some things don't make sense. Some things are rushed. All of the flaws mentioned happen in both companies. But now I think you're starting to see that it is coming to fruition. One moment. That it's coming to fruition because WWE, of course, announced that its stock has fallen yet again. And you ask why? Well, they had decent programming way back when. We all comment that we want the wrestling of 10, 15 years ago back. And that's never going to happen. But what you're stuck with now is WWE under the impression that wrestling writers can't bring anything to the table. And this is something I emphasized in a previous video. I believe it was a two-part on WWE's classification of the wrestlers has something to do with the title. But when you stop the thought that wrestling doesn't matter and what we need to do is have entertainment writers who know the entertainment business, which I always argued against, you start to come up with things that, as you see in certain WWE segments, are not wrestling related, that are just there for the nostalgia, the pop, if you will. Prime example, Bob Barker's been announced as he'll be a guest host for WrestleMania 27. Prime example right there. What the hell does Bob Barker have to contribute to wrestling or WrestleMania, let alone WrestleMania? Outside of telling us to get our cats and dogs spayed and neutered, what does this man bring to the table? No one my age or no one that age, the key demographic WWE is looking for, is not going to be interested in the fact that Bob Barker will be at WrestleMania 27. It's a lame example, but it's an example nonetheless. It goes back to my point where you need to take your legends, the ones that we bitch and complain that are worn out, and let them do the writing that they were a part of 10, 15 years ago. They can find things. They can write it so it matters. The wrestling needs to matter. And the problem that is facing wrestling, and now that you're starting to see in WWE stock, is it's not being followed like it used to. It does not matter like it used to. And this is a prime example. When investors start dropping off and your shares have been downgraded, the stock itself has officially been downgraded, then you've got to wonder, maybe it's not the management, maybe it's the direction wrestling's going as a whole. Not to say that there isn't a problem with the management. Maybe it's time for Triple H and Stephanie and the sons of the kids of the McMahons to step in and something fresh to write this material. When Vince has the final say on everything, nothing that he doesn't deem entertaining is going to pass. Yes, there are writers, but the final say comes from McMahon. So McMahon, in my opinion, needs to be taken out of the writing process. You should have not, when you renewed his contract 2 weeks ago, he shouldn't have been a key creative director. All this and more at WrestleTalkShow.webs.com. Who's your choice for the Royal Rumble? Comment on our forums. Send emails to cwecompany@gmail.com. Friend us at Facebook and Twitter, both at CWE Company. Until next time, stay tuned for part 2, where I'll emphasize this point a little more. As always, thank you for your viewership.